After summer ruined the premiere of Rick and Morty's 4th season,
disgusting! You ruined the season 4 premiere! Season 4 premiere, you ruined it!
the show came back with 3 different storylines.
Just as the premiere told us there'd be episodes without much meaning and just for fun, which this one seems to be. So, I'm Dave Klein, and let's get straight to breaking down all 3 storylines.
The beginning of the episode is the only point where we see everyone together. We're introduced to Rick's new intern, and only intern so far, Glootie. This being played by Taika Waititi, director of Thor Ragnarok, and director, writer, and actor of the recently released Jojo Rabbit, as well as the voice of the Mandalorian's IG-11. As Jerry is so dumb, Rick has literally tattooed "Do not develop my app" onto his head.
Did you want to develop an app?
50-50, final offer.
Rick's storyline is completely self-contained this episode, and speaking of Star Wars, Rick heads off to go on a solo adventure which he quips will not be directed by Ron Howard. Of course, referencing Star Wars' A Solo Story, which was eventually directed by Ron Howard after Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were fired. While this is obviously a reference to the fact that Rick is going to take a shit, it also doubles as a fourth wall break that Rick is getting his own storyline completely separate from the rest of the family. We then get the intro to the Season 4 trailer. It turns out the remote planet Rick landed on is specifically a peaceful planet for him to poop in solitude.
Honestly, I want it.
Rick finds his poop planet of solitude has been invaded by someone else, and enters a secret lab under the toilet he uses to analyze his poops, pulling up the odd recent one out, 12029. This sends him on a quest to find the being who dared poop on his throne, with the first location being a frog food joint in the Gorgon Quadrant, where a certain sandwich was ordered. We've actually heard the Gorgon referred to before in Season 3's The ABCs of Beth, when Kiara runs into her ex-boyfriend Trander.
Varric's nest spread across 300 galaxies. And you just happen to pick this planet to hunt? That's Gorgon shit. Total Gorgon shit.
Of course, being that there's the mythological creatures of the Gorgons, with Medusa being the best example, it's possible that they just took the term and inserted it in order to sound alien.
Rick discovers a delivery drone might know, giving us a brief glimpse into a frog restaurant ironically run by giant mafiosa flies, and the robot war is being fought by robots and robo-lizards. While this is kinda similar to Crocubot from Season 3's Vindicators,
Wow, so your origin is what? You fell into a vat of redundancy?
they are different. Rick wears a funnel hat on his head with a QR code on it, making the robots trust him. If you actually scan this QR code, it leads to shop.rickandmorty.com, where you can actually purchase the funnel hat. The delivery bot is destroyed while telling Rick who ordered the sandwich in question, causing Rick to turn the tides of war in order to get the archived information and essentially win the war, or at least battle, for the robots.
Here at the Midland Quasar, we're in a complete upset. The revolution has overturned the lizards.
This leads Rick to Tony, voiced by Jeffrey Wright of Westworld fame, and the alien responsible for pooping in Rick's toilet. Amazingly, Rick decides to spare Tony, but does leave him a parting gift.
Don't tell me what to do!
I just want to know the aftermath of the other aliens coming into that conference room.
This leads to a back and forth of Rick trying to stop Tony from pooping in his toilet, who continues to do so. At first, Rick celebrates deleting specimen number 12029, which I can only imagine is the data log of Tony's poop, while listening to My Shit by a Boogie with the Hoodie.
Sitting in a club in a different bag now, baby, when I pick it up.
Tony manages to read through Rick and heads right back to poop on his toilet, causing Rick to use Globofin on him.
The chemical is Globofin. It connects the whatever you want section of your brain to the whatever you have section.
For Tony, this is a heaven filled with toilets and his wife being A-okay with his recent love for strap-on porn. Tony surmises the people who've been put here are those who Rick refuses to kill or let into his life, which makes me wonder who else are in these pouches and how they relate to Rick.
While there wasn't anyone here I recognized, let me know if there's anyone you spotted in the comments.
In his final scheme, Rick brings Tony sugar-free chocolates. Sugar-free chocolates that could cause someone to...
You'll become the opening of the Beverly Hillbillies, you know what I'm saying? Little bubbling crude Texas tea.
Then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude. Oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea.
So this is a trifecta here.
First, there's the obvious Beverly Hillbillies reference from the opening I showed. Second, this is clearly supposed to represent diarrhea.
But why?
Let me introduce you to sugar-free Haribo gummy bears and the reviews that followed.
What came out of me felt like someone tried to funnel Niagara Falls through a coffee straw. I swear my sphincters were screaming. It felt like my delicate starfish was a gaping maw, projectile vomiting a torrential flood of toxic waste. 100% liquid, flammable liquid, napalm. I also highly recommend you check out the review. Just don't unless it's for someone you hate in full. It's comedy gold. And so are all of the reviews for these gummy bears. Seriously, look it up.
Apparently, this is due to sugar-free alcohol often found in sugar-free snacks, and in the case of these gummy bears, maltitol. Hence, I'd assume Rick's chocolates for Tony are chock full of this sugar alcohol. Sadly, it turns out in an effort to enrich his life, Tony died, with Rick rejecting the idea of Tony being his friend and sitting on the toilet revealing his giant prank he pulled on Tony.
If anything, it really showcases Rick's loneliness. The family's kind of tossed him aside in a way at this point and like grown the balls to stand up to him. Morty literally killed him in the last consequence-free episode, but still, and Rick himself always pushes people away.
It also all ties into the title of the episode, The Old Man in the Seat, a play on Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man in the Sea.
Which I'm about to spoil, so that was your warning.
The Old Man in the Sea tells the story of an old fisherman, Santiago, and his struggle to catch a marlin. As the two battle it out, Santiago gains a deep admiration and respect for the marlin, only for the marlin to end up being killed by a shark in the end. Similarly, Rick spent the entire episode struggling to catch and berate Tony, gaining a growing appreciation for him only for Tony to end up dying. On the B-side to the episode, Morty finds Jerry, who's developed a dating app, Love Finders, with Glootie. There's already a Love Finders website up, lovefinders.com, with it displaying the logo and a randomly generated quote from Rick and Morty. Digging into the site's source code, there's 113 potential quotes from the show, and more interestingly, a cryptic comment only someone reading the HTML source can read. Coming, maybe, but you may have to wait 2 or more friggin' years to find out. From my research, it looks like the domain name was created July 19, 2019, so months before the release of the episode. Although, the same exact day that the Comic-Con sneak peek was released, which happens to have Love Finders circled in the clip. A day after the episode, the site was updated with more, and the message, "This is just a fun site with no affiliation with any show. No breadcrumbs to hidden content, no trail to follow, nope, absolutely no code, so don't try figuring it out, since there is nothing to figure out." So what do you think? Is this just a fan-made joke, or possibly something related to Love Finders, like an app, or Rick and Morty in general that actually is being hinted at here? This leads to the pre-release Rick and Morty scene from 2019 San Diego Comic-Con of Morty and Jerry attempting to get the app taken down. Glootie takes them to the mother trip of the Nagatrons, where it turns out they plan on stealing Earth's water while everyone is distracted by the Love Finders app. After a confrontation, they draw out a plan to escape the ship, with part of the plan apparently being that they have no Rick. They're captured regardless, and Jerry's able to convince Glootie to set them free and disable the app, because they're both lonely souls and have 0 soulmates.
Although that look Glootie gives when the app reveals he has no soulmates.
That's what I thought, Glootie.
It's so sad.
Dad, I want to say something. I started today disgusted and embarrassed to be your son, and then later I thought we were gonna die because you're a loser.
There's no more, is
Nope.
there?
Now quit f***ing up and let's go.
In a way, it seems Morty is becoming a little more Rick-like as the series progresses. Between last episode and this, with him a little crueler to his family around him, not quite as awkward, knowing how to handle sci-fi equipment, and not batting an eye at killing.
While Morty and Jerry's adventures focused on stopping the app, we see its effects through Summer and Beth.
Summer has downloaded the dating app, meeting her first soulmate, Danny Bublets. He works at Jersey Mike's, a nationwide sandwich shop, and is into a jam band for old junkies, aka Fish, who still perform today. As Beth tries to interject in their meeting, Summer and Danny run off while we find out the Love Finders app has been spreading like wildfire. Summer and Danny end up at a motel chain, Blue Ball Motels, which I don't think I have to explain here. It turns out the app isn't quite perfect, as we see Summer already annoyed with a snoring and sleeping Danny. However, she's off to the next new and exciting thing, as she runs off to find a new soulmate, Jeff, and breaking off a wedding at the Sistine Chapel, a play on the Sistine Chapel, and dating mayhem ensues.
Jeff, I can explain everything.
You don't have to. Can you just marry us instead?
Jeff, don't do it!
Richard.
Maggie!
Running bird!
Let's get out of here.
Priest Witherspoon!
Josiah?
Let's get the out of here.
Priest Witherspoon, of course, being a fun play on Reese Witherspoon.
This pretty much continues until Glootie's plan from the B-story goes into effect, and an ad wall goes up where users will receive ads unless they pay for the app, causing everyone to delete it, except for Beth, who deletes it only after having a heart-to-heart with Jerry, where we discover her soulmate is Ted Danson of Cheers, and more recently The Good Place. For the stinger, here you can spot the butter robot Rick created in Season 1's Something Wicked This Way Comes, as well as the bully from the first episode of Season 4 missing on the back of a milk carton, as Morty sent him flying in the air with sci-fi gear, where he very likely fell to his death. Jerry ends up trying Rick's Globofin, which, as you may remember, connects the whatever you want section of your brain to the whatever you have section, thus causing Jerry to see himself as a water delivery man. This is likely in part due to the previous scenario, where Jerry somewhat helped stop the Monagatrons from stealing Earth's water. Couple this with Jerry feeling unwanted, discovering he has no soulmate, and seeking approval. Thus, his dream is delivering water to people overly thankful of it and truly valuing him. Notably, his dream brand is named Mountain Sweat,
which sounds oh so tasty. That wraps up The Old Man in the Seat. What did you think of this episode, and did you find anything that I missed? Let us know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.